Whose responsibility is your health, actually? Let's take a moment and talk a little bit about health. It's been an extremely popular subject these days, what with the virus and everything. And it seems like a lot of people are starting to ascribe responsibilities and things to actions that they otherwise would not have. So I think it's actually a good idea to go to the root of all our assumptions and ask ourselves, whose responsibility is it actually that we stay healthy? Now, different countries have different systems in place for public health, basically guaranteeing a right to health care or whatever else. But ultimately, let's think about this. You control you. If nothing else, for whatever other ownership, you own your own body. No one can make your arms move in a way that they don't want to move. You're the only one that can control that. You chew and swallow and eat. Of course, someone could feed you through an IV or something like that. But for the most part, the one thing you're absolutely sure of controlling is this, your meat space, your body. And everything after that, such as what can you say, what can you do, what property you own, the clothes on you, whatever it is, whatever else it is, that all comes secondarily after the body. If that's the only thing you can actually control and own at the maximum level, then whose responsibility is the maintenance of that thing? Is the health? You. It's really pretty clear. It's just you. You're responsible for your own health and only your own health. Now, this is where we start to go to the public health idea of who's responsible for the public's health. When you start to think of yourself and your bodily autonomy, and therefore you're the only one who can take care of your body, you're the only one who can secure its health, now we start to think, well, what about the public? Well, the public is built up of people just like you and me, people who have their own bodily autonomy and can take care of themselves, and in fact, they should take care of themselves. No one knows better than the individual. No one can work better than the individual to make sure their own health is good. Now, the whole concept of public health comes from the idea that we, as a collection of individuals, have some sort of a responsibility or should do some things to just make sure that the fewest number of individuals possible run into serious, irreconcilable health difficulties, or just that it elevates everyone's health a little bit better, every single individual involved in whatever collective we're talking about here. And the problem is, at some point, after enough of this thinking, enough of this, well, I want to live in a world where people aren't plagued, where we kind of take care of each other a little bit, even though we're primarily responsible. The problem is when you get into that thinking too long, then you end up in a situation where the general public is responsible for the general public, which means everyone is responsible for everyone's health exclusively. The problem is, now where we are today, we end up where the individual is responsible for the other individual's health. And that becomes a little bit of a backwards thing. You're responsible for your own health, to then you're responsible for your own health, but if a lot of us do a little bit, we can help out other people who are having difficulties in being responsible for their own health. But now we get to this point of everyone's responsible for everyone's health, and then every individual is responsible for another person's health, and that's completely backwards. So for starters, that means that if I'm unhealthy, I am now powerless. I cannot do anything about it because someone else is supposed to do something about it. And therefore, the person who actually has the most to do with their own health is now looking to others to help them out. And others, no matter what they can do to help them out, take preventative measures, pay for medicine, other things like that, they can't actually help the person they're supposed to help because the person they're supposed to help has to actually take action themselves. They have to actually go to sleep on time. They have to actually eat well. They have to actually avoid danger. And if they don't, then nothing that anyone else does will help their health at all. So now we get into this virus age where there's a lot of people who are at risk of some kind of a bodily harm and a detriment to their health, up to and including death. Maybe not a huge amount of people, but enough people that it's seen by society as a whole and by most individuals, I would say, that we should do something about others' health. And I think that's a very reasonable point of view. Okay, I would definitely do something to help other people out. The problem is it hits a point of personal responsibility over someone else's health, where I have an anecdote. I was at a coffee shop not long ago, and I was sitting alone, minding my own business, far from anyone. And a person who is both older than me and overweight comes, sits right next to me when he did not have to, and starts asking about where's my mask. Now, the mask debate is a whole different thing that I don't ever want to attack head on because it's so complicated. But this person, first of all, was not in the coffee shop, was not staying there because of any kind of a necessity. They had some work or papers they were going through, but they did not need this public establishment in order to do that. They also did not need to sit down right next to me. They did not need to engage in me. They did not need to lean in close as they did, exposing themselves to potential infection if I were an infected person, which I'm not. They needed to lean in close and expose themselves in order to say this thing. They also did not have their weight under control, which is a health factor that is related to the virus, as it turns out. And it comes from this perspective of, I have a right to health. And therefore, I'm just going out and doing whatever I want, being as irresponsible as I can be. Now, and I have to clarify, if this person is afraid of catching this virus and being harmed, they're behaving very irresponsibly for that, despite the little piece of fabric they had over their face. Everything else was very irresponsible. This person clearly had the idea that someone else was responsible for their health. In this case, me. This person made the choice that I can't make for them, to go out into the world, to go into a closed establishment, to stay in that establishment when they don't have to not get their weight under control so they're less susceptible to the virus, and to sit next to someone that they perceive to be a risk, and then get further close to the person and ask that person to do something for their health. Now, nothing I can do could help this person out. I can control myself. I can do whatever I want, but I can't control their body. I can't make them eat a little bit less and slim down. I can't make them get more vitamin D. I can't make them supplement themselves. I can't make them stay away from potentially infected people. I can't do anything. All I could do is potentially wear a mask or not, which no one's doing because we're sitting down, minding our own business, far from other people. But this perspective of you are responsible for my health and I'm not responsible for my own health is completely backwards. So I do believe, first of all, that if you're actively harming another person, if you're doing something like hitting them or driving a car really fast and not stopping when they're in the crosswalk, whatever you're doing like that, that is absolutely bad and irresponsible. To a lesser extent, I believe that you should generally behave in a way that reduces the negative externalities upon other people. As in, shower before you leave the house. Don't smell bad. Don't walk too close to people. Don't block traffic paths. Don't play too loud music that annoys other people. Don't have exhaust fumes or burning things close to other people. Don't do things that harm other people, even though it's not directly, it's just an indirect consequence of your actions. And to a more specific extent, I don't think that if you are sick, it is a nice or responsible thing to do to go out and be in proximity with other people who are not sick and therefore make them sick, unless you just really don't have any other choice. Like you gotta get some groceries, you gotta eat, you gotta do something. Where that changes is where you have an extremely small chance of any sort of harm coming, and you are not directly affecting someone else, but someone else thinks they have a right to directly affect your own behavior. Say, mandate that you wear a mask, or mandate that you do this or that, or attack you if you don't, which has happened unfortunately. And that becomes where it really crosses a line. And the reason that crosses the line is because of this backwards thinking of you are directly responsible for someone else's health. So before you go crazy about anything, remember, you alone are responsible for your own body and its actions and its maintenance and its health. Other people can be expected to not hurt you directly. Indirectly, there will always be a risk of someone else doing an action that ends up harming you. Someone might be driving quickly. Someone might, you might have to jump out of the way of the crosswalk of some people. Ultimately, though, you need to take responsibility for your own actions and your own personal health. And if you're doing anything that you think might endanger your own health, please don't. If someone else is doing something that endangers your health directly, that is a big problem. You should take it up with them. If someone is doing something that has a very minor side chance that either could be an effect or whatever, even if they can do something to help you, it's not really their place. If they're minding their own business, doing their own thing, for you to actively say, you need to take care of my health. You can always ask. You can always be nice and polite and just say, hey, look, neighbor, I know you're burning a lot of brush and the smoke's coming through and I have some asthma. Do you mind not doing it during certain times? You can do stuff like that. But ultimately, you're responsible for your own health. No one else is. Don't get it twisted.